that I got fighting me, so I squash anything that's trying me. I'm like, me versus you, I hope that you know what you're getting into. I got nothing to lose, so you better watch out, can't predict my moves. I'll make you irrelevant, I don't stop till I'm at the top settling. I live here like a local resident, and you know I ain't selling it.
I won't stop, I'm here to get what I want. I'm not lost, I'm here to make it to the top. I'll take a shot, I'll overpower any boss, cause I am not someone that you were born to cross. I won't stop, I'm here to get what I want. I'm not lost, I'm here to make it to the top.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Marko Yamashita Show. I am your host, Marko Yamashita, the only VTuber on YouTube that will give you honest, fair, and impartial news, analyzing of stories, and am unable to speak today. I have not been streaming here in the last couple of weeks. And I am extremely rusty with how everything works, so please bear with me as we go through today's topic, which is we are on the advent of Anycolor's earnings report for the fiscal year and fourth quarter. And according to some people out there, especially if you look on places like 4chan and Reddit, there's a lot of people that are anticipating Anycolor to completely bottom out and miss the earnings forecasts and a bunch of other stuff. And we're gonna go through some of those things today as we watch their stock ticker that I have above me. The stock ticker up above me will display whether or not they are running positive or negative, or whether they are there's huge sell-offs or there's huge buying, that kind of thing. As we can see right now, there were two significant sell-off dips, followed by stocks being bought back. So, Knight, welcome to the stream. Welcome. Thank you for dropping in. I appreciate you being here as always, my friend. Now, let's look at a few things. And again, I'm going to keep the ticker above me for the moment. And what I would like to do, and I am so extremely rusty on these things, so just bear with me here. So what we see in front of you is an equity ratings report from Charles Schwab on Anycolor Inc. Now, that there are going to be some things on this report that are going to be slightly skewed because they don't look at everything that when you're talking about international stock. They only take into account what their personal way of evaluating goes, and that's typically geared more towards the American stock market. So there's going to be some skewed things that we'll be looking at. Now, as you can see, according to the report here, that they are not. They are being pretty unkind towards Anycolor. They're looking at the stock. As they evaluated, they have noticed, like I've noticed, that Anycolor has continuously underperformed for well over the last 9 months, which is extremely strange, and I'll tell you why I feel that strange as we move along. They do feel that the company growth is positive. They're looking at quality, and when they mean quality, it's not just like, quality of, talent. They're looking at quality like as, how the company is performing with revenue, with income, keeping costs down, in addition to like how the stock is performing, that kind of thing. And they're pretty much saying, nah, it's there, but it's not positive or negative. Now, when we come down to sentiment and stability and valuation, of course, they take a huge nosedive, and that's partly because, as you can see on the price chart and volume history, they have continuously been on a downward trend for the better part of the last year. And that is particularly concerning because we talked about this before, where Anycolor, the board of directors and management had announced that they were buying back a lot of shares. Now, when you buy back shares, there are a couple different reasons why a company will buy back their own shares. One of it is if they feel like there's too much liquidity out there and that it's undervaluing the stock, they'll buy those shares at a discounted price, and then they'll put those stocks back into the pool once the share pool is more healthy. So there's that reason. Another reason is that they could do that to trim up their stock price, because again, with all the different formulas and stuff like that out there, it looks good on paper that they have a certain number on their stock price and their company value. So that's another reason why they'll buy stock. And the third reason, and again, there's tons of reasons why they would buy their own stock, but one of the most important things is they will buy back their own stock as a way of being able to reinvest in their own company. And then, once they buy back those stocks, that's basically like saying, okay, the money that we as executive officers and everybody would get, we're going to use that money to buy back stock and reinvest it into the company. That is pretty much basically saying that they have faith in their own company is healthy enough for them to buy back their own stock, and they're not going to lose out because they have bought the stock back at the cost of buying those stock at a discounted price. Okay, now I know that can sound a bit confusing and everything else, but again, I'll help walk you through all these things. So just bear with me. Now, the third chart down here, the price performance versus S&P Japan Composite. Before I move on, I just want to say for the Charles Schwab report here, this is all being reported after being converted into dollar amounts. Okay, so all the charts here are based. This chart here is based in earnings with yen. Okay, some of these charts are going to be with the dollar, with the yen being converted. Okay, so just kind of bear that in mind if you look at the numbers and you're kind of like, that doesn't quite look right. But as you can see here from the S&P Japan Composite, this line here basically shows the performance of other industries and other businesses within a particular umbrella that they use as kind of like a benchmark when you are looking at a stock and seeing how well it's performing versus other stocks within the same exchange. All right. Now, and as you can see here, the S&P has been trending higher for the past year, which is absolutely correct. You could look at the Topax, which is the Tokyo Exchange. You can look at the Nikkei, and all those exchanges are in fact trending higher. However, for some reason, we see that the price performance of Anycolor is continuing to slump. Now, there are several reasons for that. We'll get to that in a second here, but I want to be able to present you with the fullest picture available so you can understand what I'm trying to tell you, okay? Now, the one last thing on this page here that I do want to highlight and point out to you, if we come over here and we look at the financial metrics of Anycolor, and again, this report is built upon the last quarterly report back. Okay, so this is not the current reporting of the annual report that is due tomorrow, unless they decide to put it up now. And we'll check that here in a second. But I want you to pay attention to the financial metrics here, because if we look at the financial metrics, their gross margin and their net margin are both positive. They have a positive return on their assets, which is like leasing out their intellectual property and pictures and the VTubers, so on and so forth. Return on liquidity is looking good. A return on invested capital is step in line with the equity. But the main thing that we have to look here is the long-term debt and capital from debt is at a 0.01. This means that they are carrying a very low debt balance for the company. This means that they haven't panicked and run out to the bank and said, we need you to help bail us out and so we can keep our doors open. We're going to pull out a huge loan from you guys so we can continue our operations. They're not sinking in debt. They're able to make all their bills. They're able to pay all their employees, and they're able to continue to do normal operations without having to pull in additional resources and have debt on their balance sheet, which is huge. Because let's say that the report comes out and everything hits the fan, and they're like, okay, we need to turn this around, but we need the capital to be able to do that. They're not carrying a ton of debt on their balance sheet, so they could go out there and say, okay, Bank of Japan, we have all these things. This is how much our assets are worth. This is how much our liquidity is worth. This is how much, our dollar amount is worth as a company. We need to borrow money from you, so but we'll pay it back in lump sums, that kind of thing. They're not doing that. So that tells me one of two things: either they have extreme confidence within their own company, regardless of what the internet is saying about them, or that management is extremely incompetent, and they're just going to let this go into the ground and then say, okay, we're pulling the plug. I'll leave that up to you to decide. Umberto, welcome to the chat. Welcome. Thank you for dropping in. Okay, so let's move along here. Now, the second page here is basically a lot of different ratings and whatnot. Some of this is relevant, some of this is not, and I'm not going to go through this entire thing down here, but this does give you kind of a graphical representation of some of the numbers we are going to be looking at. One in particular here is earnings per share. If we look at Q1 of 2024, which would have been that would have been summer of last year. So that would have been June 1st, 2023 for us. They were at $43.13 per share, versus their last report in March, where their share price has dropped significantly. Now, there are a couple reasons why this number has dropped, and we will touch upon that here in a second. But I do want you guys to bear in mind that you will see people say, "Well, look at Anycolor's stock value. It's plummeted here over the last X amount of days, and etc., etc., etc." See, and the thing of it is, that number was recorded before they had a stock split, and once the stock splits, that basically means that if you own 10 stocks. If they do a 2-to-1 stock split, that basically means, you now have 20 stocks, and each one of them is worth half their value, but you maintain the value. You just have more stocks to play with, and as those stocks continue to mature and grow and revenue, you eventually end up having twice as much money invested in the company if you choose to hold on to those stocks. Now, something that does typically happen when stocks are when you have a stock split, there typically is a pretty good sell-off when it comes to stock values and stocks as they're split. But something that was extremely interesting that I noticed is, if we come back to the chart over here, and I'm going to go to an interactive chart here. See, this is 2024. And this goes all the way back to 2020, last year, okay? They did a stock split on July 28th. And as you can see from here, there was a significant drop within the stock, right? However, they did a 2-to-1 split. So every stock from this point forward was supposed to be worth half its value, all right? However, as things went on, the bottom that they got to right here is approximately about 3,000 yen. Okay, now they did the stock split up when they were close to 4,000 yen, and it only bottomed out at 3,000 yen. So basically, even though they did the stock split, as the year went on, it retained it retained more than half its value. It was basically like it paid out 1.5, and so when they got back up to here, up to 4,000 again, both of their stocks were worth 4,000, so they automatically doubled their money by September of last year. So, for people to be running their mouth and saying, "Oh, their stock continues to plummet," so on and so forth, it is completely untrue, because what we see here in this first dip here is basically the result of the stock split. Okay, now there has been a lot of stuff that has happened between the stock split and today. A couple of areas that people point at is right here towards the end of December, when there was a lot of drama going on, which is fair, because there was a lot of drama going on. And then the people also point at March, saying, oh, well, the whole Doki Bird incident and everything else, caused their stock to fall 33%, which is absolutely not true. All right. Now, the Doki Bird incident did contribute to that, but the Doki Bird incident didn't what was happening back in February, not March. So that's one thing. The second thing is that if you look at the statistics show that as early as February and into March, the dollar had been getting so strong against the Japanese yen that it was basically pushing the value of the yen down to almost to historic levels. When the Bank of Japan decided to intervene, there was a slight turnaround, but that was between February and March when you have this little this small little run here. But if you look at the news all the way through March, or even up until today, and we can look at this today, I mean, the U.S. dollar against the yen is almost at 160, and that's when the Bank of Japan intervened last time. And every time this goes higher, that means that we're basically adding to inflation that's happening over in Japan. So just bear that in mind. Now, let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, so it does look like, and we're just taking a peek over at the ticker here. It looks like that Anycolor is kind of holding pat here for their performance here on today's stock market. But I do want to just briefly, and I did not mean to add this into the rotation here, but I do want to take a quick look. So I looked earlier and there was nothing out yet. Yeah, there's still nothing out. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that they hadn't released their information ahead of time. Okay, so let's move on here. So where does this leave everything as we're looking at? Well, that is kind of a tricky question, and as a whole, I can tell you this much. We're gonna look at Anycolor's. We're gonna look at Anycolor in full here, and this is basically what their performance has looked like over the past 6 months now. And as you can see, they are continuing to downslide. If we look at historical, and come on, you can do it. I got way too many windows open. Okay, so if we look at historical here, this paints kind of an even bleaker picture that we're looking at here. So if we go out year to date, Anycolor has lost approximately 27% of their overall value, company-wise, since January, which is really painful to look at. But then when you look at year on year, they've lost 36%. They've lost over a third of their company value over the past year. Now, there are contributing factors to this besides the drama, and everyone seems to focus on the drama again. When inflation starts picking up in Japan, people tend to pull their money out of securities that are more volatile, or in this case, it's entertainment, and entertainment's not going to be on people's minds if that they are strapped for cash. So in most cases, investors pull money out of those securities that can be considered kind of like luxury, and then they'll reinvest it into stuff like government bonds, utilities, utility companies, telecommunications, tech. They look at Anycolor and they look at Covercore as both. These are just entertainment companies, and we can do without that, and they're probably not going to bring in as much money, or have as much stability to add to my portfolio. So we're just going to dump them, and that's typically what we see. Now, recently with Anycolor, they have done they have actually started to start looking a bit better over the past month. And they've been having more upswings than downswings, even though it's only a 2% climb. I mean, that's better than what they had been doing, right? So in a lot of cases, that is because it's a market reaction to what is happening here in the United States. Because every time our Fed decides that they're going to mess around with the interest rates over here, that directly affects the yen over in Japan. And as of right now, the U.S. Federal Reserve is not going to touch the interest rates. They're not going to be doing any manipulation. Our job numbers came back and they're solid. We're showing a surplus in jobs being added. So the United States looks good, and who's one of our heaviest trading partners, and that's Japan. So they in return have a reaction towards what is happening over here. Now, the Bank of Japan this week is also going to be considering whether or not they're going to mess around with their interest rates, and that's something that bears watching, because depending on what they do to their interest rates, that directly affects their stock market and the value of the yen. Typically, that means that the yen strengthens. That means that it costs less yen to buy stock. People will start selling off stock because the stock will be overvalued, and they'll get interest off of selling their stock off. And then if they choose to buy the stock back, they buy it back at a discount, and they just pocket the amount that the difference. I mean, that's basically what ends up happening. That's why you see, like on the chart here, there was a huge sales drop off, and then right after that there was a huge resurgence in people buying stock back. It's because they sell stock while it's overvalued, and then they'll buy it back cheap. That's basically what they do. So, and for comparison, just real quickly, for those of you interested, Covercore has actually been doing better over the last month than Anycolor. If you look at the difference down here, Covercore has gained 8.63% versus Anycolor's 1.86%. We'll be talking about Covercore on a later date, because I have a lot of interesting information I would like to talk about with that as well. But just bear in mind for now that Covercore, on the whole, has been either matching on par or doing slightly better than Anycolor. Though if you do look at the year over year, or even that, Anycolor has lost significantly more than Covercore. But it bears talking about that cover core has likewise been hurting just as much, if not more, than Anycolor when it comes to their stock value and everything else. So let's go move on, and something I do want to talk about just real briefly here is I still continue to see a lot of people talk about the fact that what NIJISANJI EN people are saying about how much they did or did not get paid, and a lot of people don't bother to do the research or the homework to figure out whether or not they're telling the truth or not. And honestly, again, this is of course is going to be the law of averages on the whole. However, you could basically go into their income statement here, which is publicly available, and if you look at their direct variable costs, which includes all the fees and salaries and bonuses and everything else, and whatever profits they get from sales from merchandise or whatever, you can go right here, you can find the numbers, you can do the math, and then all you basically have to do is you take the number and then you divide it by the number of VTubers that work for the company, and then divide again by 3, since this is a quarterly report. And when you do the math, you discover that each VTuber at NIJISANJI on average makes approximately $45,000 a year, a month. They make $45,000 per month. All right. If I was making $45,000 a month to work for a company that supposedly is not a great company, I would be happy with that. I mean, come on. I mean, you're basically making $500,000 a year working for a company that supposedly is a black company. All right. Let that sink in for a second. Now, this is a direct variable cost. So that cost varies depending on what's happening and what has happened over that last quarter. So if you do multiple performances, or you do multiple projects that are involved with loaning out the IP, you have merchandise sales, so on and so forth, that could directly affect how much you are getting as a VTuber when you work for NIJISANJI. But on the whole, the average amount that each VTuber makes per month for working at NIJISANJI and Anycolor is $45,000 a month. And it's not a huge secret. You just gotta know where to look, and you just look at the income statement, and you can see what the income is. And it's completely separated out between between different categories here, because in this category here includes the VTubers, the VLivers. Other costs, that varies. That includes employee costs, office rent, outsourcing, and other expenses. So this cost covers all the outsourcing towards the different people who do artwork and modeling and all those other stuff for the company. That's included under here. And then SG&A includes the amount of money that the technicians and the engineers and the IT guys and people who work in administration and their accounting department, so on and so forth. I mean, it's all spelled out here, guys. So you don't need to have to have an inside source in order to know exactly what is happening and what, and how much they actually make. Now, unless you want to know specific numbers, that may be a different story. But you can get a good idea of how much each VTuber makes simply by looking at the income statement here. Okay, now let's see. Let's look a little bit deeper into the company here. There's so much stuff to talk about. So I'm gonna pull up the details here just real quickly. Now, some of this stuff I do use, some of this stuff I don't use, and some of this stuff they want more money in order to allow me to use, and I said no, I ain't paying you. I don't want to know that badly, but this is basically just an evaluation based upon different analysts that work for investing.com, and then they take the numbers, they plug them into a matrix, and then that's how they get their ratings here. And most of their ratings are extremely healthy. Cash flow here. Cash flow is always a huge thing that people look at for a company. How much revenue are they bringing in? How much money do they have on hand that they could turn around and use should the situation arise? And how much revenue are they able to keep? Relative value, that is something that has slipped significantly over the past year, and we'll see that. But the profitability, the health profitability is almost perfect, and especially when you compare it to other people in the same sector, they are hands. I think people. I think people, especially English people, people who speak English, I think they underestimate just how much Anycolor is doing, because if we come back and we look at the breakdown of and I don't know if I have that slide readily here, but there is a breakdown of just how much they are bringing in revenue contribution by debut, diversified constitution. No, that's not it. That's way up at the top, probably. That's their employees. Any kind. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so if we look at the chart here, people tend to think, okay, if we can sabotage them, in their chats and make them feel completely, shut down their fans and scare them away and do all this other stuff. Yeah, we're gonna be doing, we're gonna be, getting back at them and whatnot. But when you look at the reality of the situation, if they are sabotaging only the EN branch here, you can come over here and realize really quickly that 4-to-1, it's probably about a 4-to-1 ratio that NIJISANJI JP is carrying the bulk of the weight already. So unless they're going into the JP streams and being annoying or being disruptive over there, yeah, you're going to cause some harm, but you're only harming people who probably either can't tell you the entirety of the story or are completely innocent. So and when you look at the revenue that comes in, sabotaging their live streams and trying to scare them off of their live streams, you are only affecting a fraction of what the revenue is that they bring in, even on the English VTuber side. I mean, look at this. I mean, people always seem to overvalue the live streaming aspect of this because, you know, that's the thing that they're most exposed to, right? But even with the English side as a whole, you know, when you look at how much revenue they bring in for live streaming versus how much they're making on merchandise, how much, live performance and promotion is, but that's common for, English VTubers, especially with the way the economy is over in the United States versus Japan, right? But I mean, you're basically only, taking into account that you are affecting what, a fourth of their income from the English speaking side, from the EN side, whereas if you compare that all the way over to the JP side, you have 3 times the amount of revenue that's coming in on live streaming from the JPs. You have 5 times the amount of commerce coming in on the JP side. You have 7 times the event revenue. You have almost 11 times the amount of money coming in through promotional deals and through collaborations with other companies where they lend out their IP to help another company sell their product. So I mean, if you compare this and you look at this, these factors are going to be why the earnings report is going to be very intriguing to look at, okay? Because people are automatically thinking NIJISANJI is going to fall flat, completely flat. They're going to, like, it's going to be a bear rush with their stock prices ski-balling into oblivion. I personally don't think that's going to happen. Now, I do think that it's worth mentioning that we are going to see NIJISANJI probably miss their EPS, which is earnings per share. And the reason why I think that is because when the forecast was first formulated for NIJISANJI, their stock value was extremely much higher. And they have not changed or adjusted their target range and their prices, and what the forecast is for their final revenue for the rest of this year. So I do think that their earnings per share is going to be affected. Now, I do want to just briefly earnings per share. Okay, so I do want to play this short video here real quickly and explain exactly what this number is that is so important. Okay.
Earnings per share, or EPS, is a measurement of a company's profit. It's calculated by taking a company's profit, subtracting dividends, and dividing that figure by the number of shares outstanding. Peter is deciding whether to invest in Al's ice cream or Ed's carpets. Al's reported a profit of $1 million and dividends of $200,000. It has 100,000 shares outstanding. Al's earnings per share is $8. 1 million minus 200,000 divided by 100,000 shares. Ed's reported a $2 million profit and paid $200,000 in dividends. It has 300,000 shares outstanding. Ed's EPS is $6. Al's has a higher EPS even though Ed's reported twice the profits. Unfortunately for Peter, knowing which company has better earnings per share is not enough to make an informed investment decision. Peter can use EPS to calculate ratios that will help him compare the two companies to each other and to other companies in their industry.
Okay, now with earnings per share, it can be a bit. It can be a bit troublesome to try to use that as a benchmark, but unfortunately that is one of the benchmarks that they use. The second benchmark is price to earnings here, and we'll cover that here right now real quick.
The PE ratio is used to determine how much investors are willing to pay for a stock relative to the company's earnings. It's calculated by taking the current price of a stock and dividing it by the company's earnings per share.
Now, see, this is why the earnings per share is important, and why we are keeping such a close look at NIJISANJI, Anycolor's stock price right now, because the PE ratio is basically what you're seeing on the chart, the live chart here. So that's the current price of the stock, and then the EPS, what we just talked about, where that number comes into play here.
Or EPS. Ken wants to buy a stock. Al's Ice Cream and Bob's Frozen Snacks both trade for $18. Al's EPS for the year was $2. Al's PE ratio is 9. Bob's has an EPS of $6. Bob's PE ratio is 3. If Ken buys Al's, he pays $9 for every $1 of earnings. If he buys Bob's, he only pays $3 for every $1 of earnings. Using the PE ratio, Ken decides to invest in Bob's Frozen Snacks because he pays less for the same amount of earnings. A PE ratio is useful for comparing companies that operate in the same industry. Some industries, like technology, have very high PE ratios on average. Some, like public utilities, have very low PE ratios. But no single ratio can tell the whole story. Price to earnings is one of the many metrics that investors use to evaluate a stock.
Okay, so with that in mind, we're gonna look at the actual numbers here of Anycolor. Now, again, bear in mind that this is not this excludes the final report for the entirety of the year, but this is relevant. CJC, you fell asleep. Oh, welcome. Thank you for dropping in. So you have not missed too much. Basically, I have been covering some of the stuff that is important to, so you can understand what I'm going through. And like, we just basically covered what EPS and the PE ratio is. So you haven't missed too much. So what we see here with the company profile that has been generated through this report, we see that we know that their price has fallen significantly over the past 3 months. We know that it's taken a big hit over the last 6 months. Now you notice that they do not mention anything beyond 6 months, and that is not another crucial important thing to remember, because with Anycolor, they did have a stock split all the way back here. They did have a stock split here, right here in basically it was probably about a year ago in July. Yeah, so in July. Okay, so and of course when you have a stock split, the price that's being reported is going to be indirectly skewed at the beginning, because you're basically cutting the how much each stock is worth in half, and then multiplying it by 2 and handing out two stocks per one stock owed. So that is something that people really need to realize, and then and you also have to take in consideration on why they are not reporting that here on this report. Now, there are plenty of bonuses that come along with this stock, with their stock here. The company holds more cash than debt on their balance sheet, and we looked at that earlier. They only have like a 0.01% debt on their balance sheet, which is extremely well. And unlike CoverCore, and we're going to talk about CoverCore another day, but unlike CoverCore is just about it is going to be jumping into a huge loan coming up here starting in, I believe, October, and they're pulling out this huge loan just to finance and make sure that there's enough equity there for them to get Hollow Earth off the ground. And again, we're not going to talk about CoverCore tonight, but just bear that in mind, because I will be doing a separate stream specifically on CoverCore and specifically talking about that. But these are two different directions that each company is taking. Anycolor has not taken out any loans. They have not. They've been paying back all their obligations, and they're basically close to being debt free from a company's standpoint, which basically means everything that comes in, once they pay the bills, it's all surplus. So that's something to be aware of. They have their cash flows can sufficiently cover their interest payments, which again that they have pretty much almost paid off already. They have plenty of liquid assets for short-term obligations. Despite what their stock has been doing, the company itself has been able to report a net plus of being profitable and not being in the red at the end of the year, which is another awesome thing. And based upon their current performance and the performance that they've done over the last 12 months, they're not going to be in the red for their final report. Now, whether or not they hit expectations of what the revenue is supposed to be, what their stock's supposed to be, so on and so forth, that's going to be a different story, because again, when you combine looking at the stock split versus what their current valuation is of each stock that is on the market, it's dramatically different than where they were a year ago. So whether or not that is calculated into the expectations and whether or not they missed that number or not is something to remain seen. But regardless of if they hit that earnings per share ratio and that marker and everything else, they are still going to be able to report a net profit to end the year, which is extremely critical, because if they are able to at least report that, it softens the blow of whether or not they've missed their PE ratio and their EPS. And this is just as a side note as well. CoverCore missed on their earnings report. Okay, I don't know how many people realize that, but CoverCore actually missed on their earnings report as well. So I mean, there's a lot of people who are pointing the finger at NIJI, but if we come and we look at oops, not that one. If we come and we look at I hate how you, oops, wrong one. That one. There we go. So if we come and look at their stocks just real quickly, we're not going to spend too much time on it, but if we come over here and look at their stocks, this reported EPS here, which is what we've been talking about, the consensus EPS forecast was 26.92, and they missed it by a mile. Okay, they this is a pretty significant miss for a company, especially when they are expected to continue to raise this number to show that earnings per share is continuing to go upward and not downward. To have a minus 8.1%, that is extremely painful. It does not do wonders for their they've been able to bounce it back regardless of that miss. But again, CoverCore is a company that you can look at and point to and say, look, they missed their EPS. They had less than stellar finish to the fiscal year, and yet they're doing just fine. Cover is up 67 points today, and that's just today. They've had a pretty good run here over the past year, or last month rather. So let's go back now. Let's see if I can go back without messing up. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've talked about that, and we've talked about how important the EPS and the ratio is. Those are going to be two very distinct markers that people are going to look at tomorrow, especially when it comes to buying and selling stock. Now, if I were to be a betting man, all right. If I were to be a betting man, I would say that should Anycolor meet all of the forecasts and all of the expectations of their fiscal year report, I would say, okay, I'll tell you what, if CoverCore, or if Anycolor rather, if Anycolor does hit all their markers, I would personally go and buy stock in their company. And I'm saying that truthfully right now. If they hit all their markers, I will seriously consider buying stock in their company. All right. I currently am sitting on 10 shares of NVIDIA that and they recently had a stock split. I actually am sitting on 12 shares. And if I were to sell half of those shares, I would be able to afford to buy their stock as well. So I would consider buying their shares if Anycolor hits all of their markers. And something else I've actually considered is I've actually considered submitting an audition video to their company and basically have the first part of it or the last part of it showing them that I have officially bought stock in their company as proof that I want to be a part of Anycolor. But of course, I can't do the rest of it. I can't sing. I can't do all the other stuff. So, but anyways, so let's continue looking in on some of the other things here when it comes to their stock portfolio here. A lot of these gauges and a lot of what you see up here, it brings it all into basically an API that allows you to visualize what all the numbers mean, and it just gives you kind of like an easy color code for everything, and it tells you whether or not they're undervalued, how much of an upside is available on the company. Now, if we look at this, if we scrutinize this panel here, we see that Anycolor is their stock is undervalued, which means it's trading below what it should be trading at, which is closer to 29, 23, or 3,000 here, with an upside of 23.51%. This basically means that should something stimulate buying, people buying of Anycolor stock, that this indicator here basically means, once it gets up to 29, it will be balanced as far as how much, it would meet the expectations of what their stock and their company value should be versus the amount of stock that they are selling. Because right now there's a surplus of stock out there that has not been sold, and so it's basically sitting there, and that's why they are undervalued. When you come and look at analyst sentiment, this basically is what analysts, and it could be anywhere from 2 to 20 different analysts looking at their stock and their portfolio here of the company and saying, this is what we would like to see. This is what we want to see out of this company for the next year, and they're looking big. And who knows if the analysts are going to be right or wrong with this, but they're looking big. They're looking at Anycolor potentially, and this is a potential, and this is an analyst's interpretation based upon them just evaluating the company. That there is a big agreement on them that they're going to get back up to 4,000, 4,450 yen per stock, which I think is way too high, in my opinion. I would look at a more reasonable forecast, and this is basically what they look at, and this is basically based upon data from 4 analysts. So between the 4 analysts, they figure that the upside for the company is at least 4,450. I think this is too high. I would say anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 would be a more realistic expectation of the company over the next year. And the only reason why I think that is that they're looking at data from all the way from 2019 to present, and part of that data is going to be skewed because of the entire COVID and lockdown and everyone being stuck at home type of thing, where the VTuber industry really took off. And now we're looking at the VTuber industry and we're saying, okay, how are they going to diversify what they're currently doing? And Hololive and Covercore have clearly shown their hand on what they expect to do over the next year. And part of what they have already shown us is they have already shown us the multiple diversification of what the company is going to be doing, and that they are planning more live shows. They're having 3 of the VTubers over there, selling I think it was like the LA Dodger tickets or something like that. You know, that they're having a collaboration with that team over there. I guess probably because they figure, you know, they're the local team, where they're putting their office over there, which I also think is a bad idea. You should not be put in an office in California and expect to make a profit. If anything, you're going to be going to be treading water with all the taxes over there. So I would have told them to go to Texas. They're more tech friendly and business friendly, but that's just me. But anyways, yeah, they've showed their hand with that. They've shown their hand with a lot of other things as well. Whereas, you know, Anycolor has pretty much played a lot of that stuff close to their chest, and they said, yeah, we're gonna look at doing more, you know, more live concerts, and you know, and we're gonna push, you know, merchandise, but they haven't really said, you know, okay, this is our big plan for coming up. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there is a very visual mismanagement, continuing mismanagement of the company, where they have the people in place that are keeping operations running on a regular basis, but they don't have anybody innovating for their company, at least that as far as innovation that I've seen. Now, you know, there could be plenty of it that I'm missing because it's a big company, and I can't watch everybody. But you know, I can look at Covercore and Hall Live and tell you just by what I've seen, you know, in a small slice of what the company is doing, some of the things that they're doing with some of their highlights, whereas I can't really do that for Anycolor. So I do think there is a definite discrepancy when you come to those two, and that falls back onto whether or not their stock is going to continue to rise at a substantial rate or not. I personally think that we're going to see Anycolor continue to do what they're doing in Japan as far as you know, reaching the market there. I personally see the English side of things continuing to go at a crawl unless they get people in there that are good management and good executives that can take the English branch and say, okay, you know, whatever's happened in the past is in the past. What we're talking about right now is today and the future, you know, and we gotta pull together as a team. And me personally, I get that everyone is out for themselves. All right, I mean that shouldn't be held against them, because they're you know, everyone is in being a VTuber for different reasons, but those reasons are for ourselves as well as, you know, putting ourselves out there for people to watch and listen to. But that being said, you know, you have to be able to you know, guide those people and that talent to say, okay, you know, we got to work together sometimes. We don't have to like each other, but let's get along with each other enough to be able to get what needs to be done, and then you can go off and, you know, pursue your own advancement and achievements and all that other stuff. But, you know, when we're talking about, you know, my money, your money, our money, the company's money, you know, if we wanted to capitalize on what we're trying to do here to make that money and fame and stuff like that, sometimes we do gotta work together. Sometimes we do gotta get things done, and we gotta, you know, you gotta pursue those things and stay on top of them. You can't expect somebody else to just like take what you're saying and run with it. You know, you gotta follow up on that stuff too. So, you know, that's just me though. I think that Covercore has it figured out, and that's why I right now I would definitely say Hall Live is definitely at an advantage here. So let's move on just a little bit here, and we'll go back into some of the things that we were talking about here. Now, we were talking about the PE ratio and EPS. Now, typically, the higher the EPS, the better. That show, especially when you're comparing companies. Now, if we were to take these numbers here and compare them to cover cores, the EPS for cover core is a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller than what Anycolor is. Now that's a significant thing as well, because EPS, earnings per share. This basically means for every share that a person has bought, this is how much earnings they're pulling in for those shares. So the higher this number is, the more money and the more revenue they're pulling in per share. So in this case, Anycolor has the advantage on that by a significant amount. They're at 141.69, nice, and then as opposed to CoverCore, which is only at 67.68. Now, when we look at this, at the other number that we were just talking about, their PE ratio is 40.47. Whereas if we look at the PE ratio for Anycolor's PE ratio is 17.98. Now, both of these numbers, these two numbers here, these are things that investors tend to look at, because this means that for one stock, but to buy one stock of Anycolor stock and have that money come back for every $1 of profit, you have to invest 17.98. That's basically your return on investment for profit versus earnings, right? Now, when you compare that to CoverCore's data is extremely. It's a lot higher. That doesn't necessarily mean that CoverCore is doing a bad job. However, it does say that there is more potential to invest money into Anycolor and still have the same expected results that you might get if you were to invest in CoverCore. And it's something I've always I've always said, where one company goes, the other one follows, and that is exactly true. There is a difference in stock price here by close to 500 yen. However, you also have to consider that Anycolor has been in the game a lot, over 2 years longer as a publicly traded company versus Hololive. So when you look at it from that perspective, typically it's the established company that has a higher PE ratio, and hopefully a higher EPS as well. But in this case, Anycolor, it is actually a more attractive company worth considering to buy, because they are trading below what the fair value is. They hit 44.60 on their stock at one point over the last year, and their balance sheet shows that they have actually been fairly responsible for with the money, the revenue, and the earnings for their company. Now, that does not automatically translate into that this is a must-buy stock, or that we're going to see a huge turnaround on that. That there's an aspect to this where we can't really extrapolate other than what we kind of see and hear through various channels, and that is what is the direction and expectation that we're going to see for Anycolor moving forward. Now, and this is why I really do enjoy looking at their investor material. This is and ironically, me saying I kind of want to buy stock in one of those companies is what drove me into looking into financial reports and all this other stuff that is the other side of the VTuber industry. They do provide some little bits and pieces of information within their investment material here. Let's see. High operating margin, streaming and IP business. Now, this is kind of misleading here, but I kind of had to laugh when I saw this as part of their report here, that they have a 97% retention rate of talent, and then as down here, the little notation: number of domestic VTubers as of April 2022, minus those who graduated during the fiscal year fourth quarter, divided by the number of domestic VTubers as of April 2022. So they're only considering or accounting for Japanese VTubers with their company, and this notation does not include everything that's been happening with the EN branch. So, and quite frankly, and I'm saying this as an honest to goodness outsider observer looking at what has happened to NIJISANJI over the past year. Quite frankly, if the talent is gonna be unprofessional, and if the talent is going to be disrespectful, and if the talent is going to not follow the rules and protocols that have been outlined to them, why would they expect to have fair and balanced treatment from management beyond what the obligations are within your contract? I mean, it's kind of like me sitting there and berating somebody into their face, and then expecting them to help me, help me move. It's like, if I'm going to sit there and insult you and belittle you and make you feel like a POS, and then turn around and say, "Oh yeah, man, you going to help me move today?" I mean, would you really sit there and say, "Oh sure, yeah, let's go do that right now"? No, regardless of whatever friendship we supposedly have, you're gonna say, "No, piss off." Why would I want to help you after all the stuff you've done towards me, and all the things you've said about me, and going around and doing stuff behind my back, and doing all this stuff, and and bringing all this drama and affecting my friends and my family and the company and all this other stuff. Why would you expect more than what is, the stipulations of our contract? If you're not going to honor your side of the contract, and that's why we see like so many Japanese VTubers and the Japanese side of things being able to bring in this much money and hey, they're making $500,000 a year, US, $500,000 US a year. Which means that it's worth even more in Japan. They're living pretty good, and they've been able to figure it out and say, okay, I'm bringing in this much money. This is what I want, to be able to live comfortably, and then they do whatever it is that they want to do with the rest of it. I mean, it makes sense that if you want the company to treat you right, you got to treat them right, and then you kind of got to play ball according to their court rules. Otherwise, you get what we got right now. So let's continue to look on here. So now this is also something I thought was pretty interesting as well. For the YouTuber viewing time, they 758 million hours. Wow. And what's interesting about NIJISANJI is that they're 60-40 when it comes to male and female, the male and female fan base, and this 40% is mostly Japanese fans that are female. I mean, and that basically tells you right there that, they have a good diversification between their male and female audience there. So, I mean, that's really cool. 43% of their fans are under the age of 24. 38% is 25 to 34. Then you got 13% that are 35 to 44. And you even got 6% there that are fans that are over 45, which is great, which is really great. Now and this is also something interesting that I saw. So NIJISANJI has restarted their virtual their VLiver Academy, their VTA over in Japan. They have restarted the audition and the whole audition and submitting your application for the JP side of things, and of course they are also still have open auditions for the English side of VTubers and VTubing and everything else like that. Now, if this was a company that was in trouble, they would not be doing stuff like this. They would not be opening, have open auditions and applications to be able to bring in other people if their company was hurting that badly. If anything, it would be downsizing the amount of talent or just maintaining the amount of talent that they have, so they can restrict the amount of expenditures that they would have, especially if the company was really in trouble. So for them to be doing that is it's very telling. And that they're doing the same thing that Cover is, brand growth through their IP, building a complex community here, which is basic for everything that they have been doing, and they are basically talking about VTuber unit program to expand revenue opportunity, virtual talent agency, various content productions. They have people on staff that specifically work on those things. They're looking at different music and video merchandising. That's pretty standard. And then it seems like for them, they're looking at more, diversifying themselves through IP leveraging, as opposed to taking on. I know that Niji has some kind of mobile app type of thing, but I mean, it doesn't sound like it's extremely interesting. I could be wrong, but it looks like they're more focused on loaning out their IP and leveraging out the various talent, as and making contracts that way, versus what Covercore is doing, and trying to build this whole ecosystem from the ground up, for online engagement. Now, the financial modeling here is extremely interesting, because once again, like I pointed out before, this is how much that they pulled in through live streaming. All right. They pulled in, roughly 49, 47. This is million. So, 400, like close to 5 million, maybe. Actually, I think that'd be billion. Yeah, that would be billion. Yeah, so, you got 49, 47 here, and then versus commerce, and the commerce is where they're getting their money at. I mean, it's almost 3 times the amount of revenue that they pulled in from streaming services. And of course, they haven't had the success for live venue attractions like what Covercore has done. So I could see them really wanting to step this up with live performances. I don't know whether or not that is something that is on their agenda or not, but I could see them wanting to do, trying to do a couple more events over the next year to try to, at least stay toe and step with Covercore, because honestly, this is probably where the most amount of improvement needs to happen, is for event and promotion venue. Live streaming is always going to be, it is what it is, and unless there is like some game that really catches on, and you basically want to watch and stream it nonstop, like Elden Ring was, then I don't know. Well, and I honestly, and again, this is kind of a side observation, but I have seen several of them. Well, and this is, I guess, is more Covercore, but I know Covercore has several of their people have recently gone back and played through all of the Metal Gear Solid games. So I'm wondering if Konami has some type of promotional type of thing that's going to be happening between the two of them, where they pushed the new Metal Gear Solid 3 game that's supposed to be coming out, or I guess it's a remake, but anyways, let's see here. What else do we got here? So, but that looks like what, I mean, it's extremely, how can I say this politely? It's very by the numbers what Anycolor is doing, at least for the report here. And again, this is not the report for the to end the year and talk about what they're going to be doing for this coming year. But I would hope that there would be more creativity and innovation that's put into the report about what they're going to be doing for this next year, because honestly, almost all of their metrics line up for them to have a huge bounce back, assuming that their earnings report comes back relatively positive, or that they beat expectations for this last final quarter. Now, quarter three, a lot of people that were being down on Anycolor, and I just realized my music's not playing. There we go. I know that for this last quarter, a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, Anycolor had." They completely missed their earnings and stuff like that. But in actuality, Anycolor had already pre-reported that Q3 earnings were going to be lower because of the amount of cost. It was a higher than expected cost of their live event that they held. So that was already a known secret, and that a lot of people tried to play up and say, and point to it and say, look, they're failing. They can't even do what CoverCore is doing. And it's not that. It's that, CoverCore has actually been much more active with trying to figure out how to do the live events. And they basically beaten Anycolor to doing the live events and figuring out how to bring down costs and to maximize the profit potential with doing something like that. In addition to bringing in vendors and people doing other sales there, and having selling vendor spaces there for other people to sell their stuff there, and so on and so forth. So I don't think that I don't think that it's I don't think that it's inappropriate to look at Anycolor and say tomorrow they might have a chance to beat expectations. Now, of course, these numbers have already been collected, and they've been sitting on a report for at least a month now. But they're with accounting and messing with numbers, you can manipulate them to a certain extent, and that's kind of a well-known secret in the stock trading industry, that numbers can be fudged and they can be skewed, and you can play with them to a certain point and still have them all be factual. So that may also be something that happens. I don't know, but I do think that Anycolor has a chance to potentially, and this is just a potential, to beat the expectations of people out there and have a relatively good closing to their fiscal year, so they can move on to the next year. Now, do I smell blood in the water for NIJISANJI? Not necessarily. And the reason why I say that is, and I go back and I point back to two very important things that we have seen already in what the data that is already here. And there's actually three things. Number one, they have bought back, they have bought several, over a million shares of their own company, as far as reinvestment. Number two, they have an extremely small amount of debt that they are, as far as an obligation. So they're not paying back a huge sum of money on the regular basis. So, because they don't have much to be in debt about. They have basically paid off most of it throughout the last several years. And that is also something significant, because that money that goes to pay off the debt can then be reallocated to something else, so that's another thing. And the third thing is that their revenue stream and the amount of revenue that they are reporting, by and large, is it's an 80-20 split between the revenue being pulled in by Niji JP versus Niji EN. And as much as the English speaking audience trash talks NIJISANJI and belittles the company and tries to paint them in a bad light, I honestly, if they were doing that badly and they were that bad of a company, the JP side wouldn't be constantly smashing through every expectation that's put in front of them. I mean, they have not had a bad quarter, especially on the JP side. And part of the reason why is because they seem to, they play by the rules that are given to them by their management. And they realize, hey, if we want to keep this job and this exposure, we can't go out and be making a mess like what Doki Bird did, or several of these other streamers have done. And they sure as hell don't want to be a media pariah like how Miki Nico's been made out to be. They don't want to be that VTuber girl that has drama continuously circling around them. They would just assume graduate and exit quietly instead of going out kicking and screaming like what we've seen here over the past year. So I can see, I can definitely see that the potential for Anycolor to surprise everyone here coming up in the next day. Now, looking a little bit farther ahead, I had hoped to time this a little bit better, because I had actually I actually had my material prepped for both Anycolor and for Covercore, but since Anycolor's earnings results are expected out here tomorrow, and we'll have to check tomorrow, like midday tomorrow for me, and then maybe later on in the afternoon to see when they publish it. It's something I want to go through and cover and look at with a fine-tooth comb. But I also want to discuss the implications of tomorrow's earnings report with because what happens with one company affects the other. And should Anycolor fall hard on the earnings expectations and forecasts, it's going to affect Covercore. Maybe not as extreme, but it will damper any kind of momentum that they may have for turning this around. Because I mean, honestly, when you look at just how badly both companies have been impacted, I mean, they're nowhere near close to just breaking even here for as far as getting their value back up to where it should be. You know, luckily for, and I believe this is kind of a run at both companies, and in anticipation for the earnings report for tomorrow. That's why we're seeing a positive trend here. But as soon as I kid you not, as soon as that earnings report drops, if it's a miss, we're gonna likely see a big sell off tomorrow. And that kind of concerns me, because honestly, regardless of how you feel about Anycolor and NIJISANJI and all those other things, if you like them or hate them, they're one of the two biggest publicly traded companies in the VTuber industry, and to wish Anycolor to fail also condemns Covercore. You could, let's say that tomorrow, I mean, their earnings report is just horrific, right? And it's a complete and absolute massacre, and their stock plummets. Covercore may be able to stand on their own 2 feet, but they're going to take a significant impact along the way. And as we've seen over the past year, they haven't been affected nearly as hard as Anycolor, but they still took a 20% hit, and they're still feeling it from all the economic news and all the developments with the devaluation of the yen, with the different rate hikes that have happened both in Japan and the United States, the market correction that hit all the Asian sectors here earlier in the year. I mean, there's just been a lot of things that Covercore has had to suffer, weather the storm through. And fortunately, Covercore hasn't had any of the huge drama that has plagued Anycolor. But I also hope that as a company, Anycolor has learned a lesson from this, and has started to expect more professionalism from their livers, especially their English livers, because quite frankly, they are talent under their own banner, and if they hire talent that are mentally unstable, I guess you would want to label them, maybe. Or, they hire talent that comes in with a lot of baggage, you're going to have to deal with that baggage, and you're basically sabotaging yourself. And that's not a good thing. So I'm really hoping that Anycolor will look at this and say, okay, how are we going to manage our talent better in 2024? Now, I do want to say, to wrap this particular part up, that I will seriously consider buying Anycolor stock. Should they meet or surpass all of their all their forecasted and projected results on their financial report tomorrow. I will seriously consider it. You have to buy for the Japanese stock market. You have to buy 100 stock at a time per order, which for Anycolor, I believe it is about. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, not that one. That window. Let's see here. So let's look at. Let's see here. For Anycolor stock, let's assume that they close at, let's do 2380. So for one stock share, it would be 1530.13. So add a couple zeros, and we're talking about $1,500 investment in Anycolor. Should they meet all their expected projections and stuff like that, I'll consider buying it, and I will also consider submitting an audition to their hey, the Cool 2T, welcome to the chat, welcome. So I was just talking about now that you're here, you're probably going to hold me to this, but so I was just saying that Anycolor's earning report is scheduled to come out tomorrow. Okay, now a lot of people are betting against Anycolor, saying that they're probably not going to meet their revenue projections or their revenue forecasts or their earnings per share forecasts, or all their PE ratio forecasts, so on and so forth. So should Anycolor meet and or exceed those forecasts and expectations, I will seriously consider buying stock in their company. All right, we're talking about a $1,500 investment into Anycolor. You have to buy 100 shares per order. That's minimum. Yeah, and you have to buy in multiples of 100 in their stock market. So I will seriously consider buying shares in their company, and I will not only that, but I will also record an audition video, and I will include the fact that I have bought shares in their company before I submit it to Anycolor. That's not going to say that they'll take me seriously, right? Because I mean, number one, I would desperately need to have voice acting and coaching to have some kind of singing voice, which I don't know if I even have one, but that's the plan. That's the plan. Should they meet expectations for tomorrow, that's the plan. So we'll see how that goes. Me personally, I mean my personal predictions for Anycolor, I do think that they will likely miss on their EPS, simply because their stock value has dropped so bad over the past year. And I honestly, I don't know whether or not their anticipated fourth quarter, whether or not they included the forecast of their EPS at, post stock split, because they did their stock split after they reported their financials for 2023. So they might have they might have included that in their financial forecast. But the thing of it is, what bothers me about this entire thing is that even though they had these drops because of the economy and because of the drama and all that other stuff, they did not come out and say that they were adjusting their forecast for Q4. Now, when Hololive before Hololive released their Q4 report, they had actually adjusted their forecast upwards, and because they adjusted their forecast upwards, they actually ended up missing, which is a terrible thing to have happen. But they had adjusted their revenue and their EPS upward for their final quarter, and then they ended up missing on their EPS, which I'm like, how can you do that? I mean, if you knew it was going to be beyond expectations, why are you trying to make yourself look even better and then having it backfire? Because their stock dropped. Their stock dropped for about a week after their earnings came out because they missed. So I don't know why they would do something like that. But Anycolor has not adjusted their financials upward or downward or anything else. They have their board of directors haven't bought back any more stock in the company. I mean, if they wanted to fudge the numbers, they could have bought back their another bulk amount of their common stock, and that would raise their numbers down here to meet within an expected or projected forecasted number, but they haven't done that either. Their balance sheets all I mean, they have plenty of cash flow coming through. And if you look at their balance sheet more closely, you can see the numbers for this, and this is all accurate. They hold more cash than debt. They barely have any debt on their books. They have plenty of cash flow, liquidity on their assets. They have plenty of that as well. Profitability, regardless of what their numbers look like here, their revenue for the company has continued to be on the plus side, and they're not bleeding money. They're not burning through money and spending money like crazy either. So I mean, there's a lot to like about their company for this coming year, especially and this is another thing that people don't see. They always seem to not really realize unless they start trading in the stock market. And it was something that I had meant to talk about, but where are you? Here we go. Okay, so NVIDIA, buy the dip, not the raise. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you buy the dip, you don't buy the raise. If it's already raising, you might have already missed out on it. I mean, that's just kind of how it plays. But it's so early to say if they are in a loss. They might even. It's still early early to say they are in a loss. They might even consider this happening because yes, well, and that's a good point. That there are there are of course some things that we kind of have to either assume or perhaps even do a little bit of fortune telling. We can assume that a stock split may have already been in consideration before they submitted their 2023 report, and then they made their projections for this coming year. the stock split could have already been in play as a consideration, and then those numbers be figured into their quarterly earnings reports and everything else like that. So that is a very good a good catch, that they could have anticipated some of these things, as well as seeing the financial drag that the EN branch had already been putting on the company, as with them falling behind. So that could have also been a consideration as well. And this all assumes that that their executives and their management team and their financial team, that they are all looking at this from a business analytical standpoint, and not like what people say about their CEO, where it's just a playtime toy hobby of his, while he buys another yacht, or whatever the hell they say. It's very possible, and I kind of tend to believe that the reason why you don't have a lot of people coming out, like management and PR and everything else, to talk about a lot of this stuff, is because they handle their business behind closed doors, and what happens behind those closed doors stay there. And they only let out what they want people to hear, and even then it's kind of like, we'll talk enough to be able to communicate with our shareholders, but that's about it. Unless you're part of their PR department, or you're a rep for that department that is selling something that that they may be doing or releasing or putting on display somewhere. That's the limitation of what you get from their management department. So whereas Yago is extremely more vocal and interactive, and more willing to sit down with people and kind of share a little bit of what he thinks his company should look like for the next year, 5 years, 10 years, that kind of thing. And also, don't forget the value of the yen is also extremely important. We did talk about that, and I mean, right now the value of the yen it's creeping up there again. It's hovering about 157 yen per US dollar. So that's also a good point. But what a lot of people don't get is when you talk about a stock split, right? And it's actually kind of a pretty simplistic concept when you look at it. A stock split occurs when a company divides their existing high value shares into a larger amount of shares with lower value. It's basically like you take a pie, right? You like that cherry pie, or you like that pumpkin pie, or that pecan pie, or whatever kind of pie you like, right? And you cut that sucker. You have to divide it, because you got 3 other people eating pie with you, right? So you divide that pie up, and that there's still going to be that pie that everyone is taking from, but now you're just dividing it up so everyone can have a share, right? It's kind of the same concept, only in this case you're taking a very expensive stock, and then you're basically splitting that stock in half, and then you're giving that stock. If you already own stock in that company, you're getting that stock back. They just cut it in half for you. Now you got 2 stocks, and each stock is worth half of what the whole was. And the reason why they do that is, they cut the stock in half. They split that stock because that way the price of the company's stock is more reachable to a larger amount of investors out there. You know, if a stock is worth $1,000 and then you split that stock in half, it's much easier for someone to pay 500 than it is for them expect them to pay 1,000, especially in Japan, where you have to buy units of 100 stock at a time in order to invest in a company. They make you do it that way. So it's much more appealing for somebody to say, yeah, I'm gonna buy 100 stock in that company if that stock is worth, you know, still has a good value, but it also has a value which is affordable to me. And that's basically the same concept here. You know, it makes shares more affordable for investors who may have wanted to become shareholders but could not afford due to the price of the high stock. When you split it in half, you're basically making it more affordable. Now, here's the big thing. All right, NVIDIA, you know, the video card company, they've split their stock 6 times now. Okay, they've had 6 stock splits over the last 25 years, and each and every time after those stock splits, the company has continued to gain in value. Now, this isn't without, you know, turbulence and whatnot that come through, especially after this last stock split in, I think it was like 2021 or 22. I think it was 2021. They did their stock split and it fell. There was a decline in it, but then the stock eventually recovered and shot back up. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to see this type of growth coming out of Anycolor this next year. However, it's extremely possible that you know, with a greater exposure and the ability to have people come out to afford their stock, and especially if they're able to, you know, at least meet the expectations of their earnings report tomorrow, or, you know, come close to it, they, you know, there's a real possibility where it could rally and help get their stock back up. Did you see Texas wants to open a stock exchange? Yeah. Well, and that's just it. NVIDIA sells money printers. What does Anycolor sell? Well, that I would have to defer to the guy that owns a yacht. You know, that's above my pay grade. You know, if anything, I would say that they sell a pretty good Japanese product, but the English product needs a little work still. But I wanted I wanted to have to buy into NVIDIA for a long time, right? And yeah, I had the opportunity. So here's what my thought process was. All right, I had put money into my broker account to because I was considering buying the dip, so to speak, with Anycolor. And you know, have that money ready in preparation just in case they happen to hit all their forecasts, and you know, their stock starts recovering. But then it was like, okay, well, I know that the long play in this would be for me to put my money in NVIDIA, especially after their stock split, because I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I mean, NVIDIA is not gonna, you know, they would have to, you know, fail hard, and, you know, another company like AMD come along and say, oh yeah, well, we got video cards too. You should try our cards. They're cheaper too, you know, that kind of thing. And they're like Microsoft, right? Microsoft is like, oh, you got Apple, you got the Apple OS, right? But then you got Microsoft. Those are the only two players in town. You know, I mean, yeah, you got Unix and Linux and all that other stuff, but or in Ubuntu and all those other, smaller ones out there as well. But I mean, the predominant players are Microsoft and Apple, right? And it's pretty much the same thing when you come to AI chips and video cards. You got AMD, you got NVIDIA, and then you have the other players that are trying to get in there to do their to get their piece of the pie. Like, you got Microsoft, you got Apple now that's trying to jump in there. You have Google, you have Meta with Zuckerberg and everything. And you got a couple other players into now. Even Intel is trying to figure out how to get their foot in the door as well, and they're trying to find a lucrative business strategy to jump into the AI scene. But the biggest players right now are NVIDIA and AMD, Meta, and Microsoft, and Google. There's 5 people in there already. But if you look at all their stock, NVIDIA has been the only one that has, really rallied and gone on a run. And that's primarily because they've beaten everyone to the punch. And they've been able to secure their supply line. They've been able to, put together things in a working concept. They've been able to actually, produce and manufacture them and show that, their stuff works, so on and so forth. And that's kind of what Anycolor needs to do. Because Anycolor, again, and we've talked about this a little bit, here tonight, where, if you look at CoverCore, Yago has come out there and said, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're doing in the JP branch, right? This is what we're doing in the Indonesian branch. This is what we're doing in the English branch. And he's actually taken the time to spell out some of the things that he has planned and that they're working on for the English branch, as far as expos that they're going to be attending or participating in, concerts that they're participating in. I saw that apparently Maury is releasing another album or something like that. I mean, and then they had the whole thing with the LA Dodgers, or something, or Brooklyn Dodgers, or LA. I forget. I don't know whatever team it is out there. I don't follow baseball, but those are just some of the things that have that they've already been able to reveal and put out there in front of the English speaking audience, and that's the main reason why. When I had the money, I looked at both of these companies. I said, okay, we got Anycolor on one side, we got CoverCore on the other side, and I can look at CoverCore's, their business strategy for the next 3 to 5 years, and kind of already know what they're thinking about doing. Whereas when you look at Anycolor, it's kind of like, well, they're hanging in there. Well, that's about all they're doing, is that they're just hanging in there. It feels like there's a complacency within the upper echelons of, we're gonna do what's needed to be done to make sure that the company continues to run. but we don't need anyone else to know about this, you know. And I'm not sitting there saying that they need this, you know, like do another live stream and have what's his name come out and spend 20 minutes telling us exactly what he's going to do to every last detail, you know, or anything like that, because I know that's not his style, and that's not Anycolor style, you know. That they have completely over and over proved that they either don't have the capacity or they don't have the foresight to be able to put out a common message and you know, for their company without it having to go through the interpretations of their English speaking VTubers. And that's a problem, especially if they want to continue to branch out and they expect it, you know, their English branch to grow or mature or become something more than what they are now. They have to have some sort of outreach there, you know, and that's where my entire thought process was, you know, for putting in an audition video to Anycolor. Is like, you know, your boy here, you know, I mean, if you're gonna send him the voice lessons, okay, that's fine. But you can do that. I'll try anything once, you know. Put me out there. Let me know. You know, go over with me what I can and cannot talk about, and then put me out there, and I'll talk, and I'll communicate, you know, with you know, with the people that are out there. You know, I don't know if I could sell myself good enough or whatnot, but hey, you know, if you give me at least let me know what I can and can't talk about when it comes to specific things, and then go out there and actually talk about the company and what the plans are, you know, and kind of give people an idea. Hey, you know, we got some stuff coming down the pipe here, you know, and you might really be interested in it, you know, and just kind of hang tight, you know, and we, you know, maybe drop a couple of hints on who they might be and what they might be doing and stuff like that. You know, I think it would be better. You can't talk about your ocean. Oh man, that would hurt so bad though. If I can't talk about Roboco, oh. See, I would not give up this account. I would not give up this persona just to work for Covercore or for Anycolor rather. Yeah, I mean, if they allow them to do that for Covercore, then Anycolor can allow it for me. Yeah. But I mean, seriously, I would really consider it if I can stage things correctly, you know, if things could, you know, if things could be negotiated to, you know, allow me a certain degree of flexibility, and that's kind of where like why I wanted to submit an audition video to them, so I can personally kind of talk about what, you know, what my plans are and what my ideas were, and kind of give them you know, hey, I can't sing you know, I would need to have voice lessons for that. I would need a lot of work to be able to get to that point and being a performer. However, you know, I can sit here and talk for 2, 3, 4, 6 hours at a time, you know. So I mean, that there is that, you know. I would rather me be somebody that would be able to provide a mature conduct of addressing serious situations, as well as things that, you know, I would hope would excite people that are fans of the company. So, there can be some damn communication, because honestly, I mean, the more that the more you restrict the amount of information that comes out from a company, the more suspicious you really do look. And that's why a lot of people they look at the VTuber agencies out there, either privately owned or publicly owned, and they're like, why are they allowed to get away with that? Why are they allowed to treat employees this way or that way? Why are things the way they are? If you want to take things to the next level, and you truly want to innovate, and you want to reach a larger audience, you have to be able to talk to them. And you just don't see it. And the only talking that ever happens are from dumbasses who spin the truth so they can get likes and clicks on their videos, or other dumbasses who are just doing it for the money. And I'm not going to go there and talk about that person again. Those are the only people out there that are actually talking about the company in any capacity, other than the people who are trying to spin gossip and agitate the current chaos that's out there. I mean, even if you were to have say an incident happen, and you have a rapid response to that, where an incident happens, it's not going to be contained. You already know that that person may be out there already blabbing their mouth about it. Have someone be able to come out there and provide a real statement from the company, and not just a sterilized one like what happened this past time. Have somebody sit, if you were, look, if Anycolor would have given that entirety of that statement about Doki Bird, right, and had somebody who was not involved, like the other NIJISANJI people, had somebody actually come out, talk about the statement that was released, and explain why the wording is the way it was, or perhaps even provide context to what happened, or what the statement is meant to convey, it would go a long way, as opposed to having people read it and then have somebody else basically skew their way of interpreting what they're reading. If you look at what happened with production Kawaii, when that entire gen left, right? You had what's her name come out. This is just a little tidbit of what I was going to talk about, but I canceled that stream a long time ago. But what's her name came out. I think it was Rena. I think Rena came out, and she talked about the statement that was issued from the other girls. She claimed that she supposedly wrote it, and that she supposedly collaborated with them and made sure everyone was comfortable with it, despite the fact that she was at camp, camping with her family, and she had no communication through her computer until she got back from camping 2 days later, by the way. which I mean, but everyone, almost everybody who was a fan automatically said, oh, that's what happened, right? Never mind that, just, that the incident happened 2 days prior to that. She had said, and that she had no computer access to what was happening, and she said that she would have to catch up with it after she came back, which then she came back, got caught up with what was happening, and then came out and said that she had wrote and prepared the entire statement. It made no sense in continuity, but the fans of Production Kawaii completely accepted it. She used smoke signals. yeah, that must have been it. He probably did some smoke signals and maybe like took out some signal flags and then perhaps maybe she was corresponding with them with carrier pigeon. I mean, who knows? But you see what I'm saying? If you bring somebody out who is not involved, all right, who is who maybe represents the company but is not specifically involved in that situation, unless maybe like they're an HN person, which they're a manager of the company and talent, but the conflict wasn't between you and them. It was you're just out there talking on behalf of the company, and talk about this stuff. Talk about the fact that hey, we know there's a lot of talk going around here. We want to be able to talk about some of it. We can't talk about all of it. We can talk about some of it. Have somebody be able to do PR for your company. On the level where the fans can, oh, okay, that person is speaking to me as a fan and as a person, and we can appreciate that, rather than maybe once in a blue moon have your millionaire CEO come out and apologize on behalf of the company and say that we'll do better, and that's it, or just releasing releasing very sterile, very kind of business oriented releases that speak volumes in a vacuum, because there's nothing else anyone is saying. And you're not gonna get a fair hearing from somebody who may or may not been involved or implicated in the situation. You can get some sympathy with them, giving their side of the story, perhaps, especially if they want to talk about that. But all that's gonna do it's gonna provide context from their side of things. But if the direct conflict was with those people, most people are gonna either be turned off by that, or they are gonna listen to the first person that talks and completely ignore the second person. It happens all the time. That's what happened with the Doki Bird incident. So I honestly feel that this is something that, and again, if they offered me a job, I would consider it. I'm not saying that they're gonna it's any color or bust for me. I'm not gonna say that, because I don't have enough talent to probably do what they want out of an English speaking VTuber. That being said, I certainly would not mind kind of being a male version of Achan, where I may be able to speak on certain topics with much more freedom than just a normal talent would, But that's just me. That's just me. But and again, I will say this, and I will I will own up to it. Should Anycolor meet or exceed all of their benchmarks on tomorrow's earnings report, I will seriously consider buying their stock, and I will at least put together some kind of audition video to submit to them. And at the end of the video, I would say, this is how much I really want to work for Anycolor, and I'll press the buy button to show that I bought their stock. That's the plan. I say, this is how much I really want to work for you. I'm willing to buy stock in your company and show that I have I have the trust in your company, that I'll trust you with my own money, even though I don't work for you and you haven't hired me. But this is how much loyalty that I would give to your company. That would be the way I would approach it. You know, I mean, how many people may have thought about doing that? I don't know, but you know, dropping 1,500 on a stock for a company that you want, you know, and you want them to hire you. I mean, I think it would be worth some consideration, don't you think? You know, just a little bit. I mean, I won't let them. I won't. I wonder how that would work. Because I wonder if I got hired. And again, this is kind of just dreaming a little bit, but if I got hired by Anycolor and I still own CoverCore stock, I wonder if they would make me sell it. Because I would have stock in a competitor. Then again, they might not even ask for a disclosure like that. I would, you know, that would be interesting. That would be an interesting thing to look into. But I digress. I gotten way off topic with this, but yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun to think about. You know, I don't think it would happen, but if it did, I would be very surprised, and I would probably even be very humbled that they would see some potential in me. But it would never happen. But I could still try and use that as kind of a selling point, I guess. But all right, guys. Well, that about covers everything that I have to talk about for today. But I did originally expect to do or talk a lot more about some of this stuff, but just unfortunately. Oh, and that reminds me. So before I leave, I do have one final thing to talk about. It to me, it's kind of embarrassing because I should have known better. But so I had a very I had a how can I say this? I mean, I'm already embarrassed just trying to talk about it. But so okay, so in a nutshell, I don't know what it's like where you live, but where I live, they have legalized the sale of CBD, the derivative that comes out of hemp. And you can buy it either with a prescription or in smaller doses, recreationally, right? And as you guys know, I have a lot of different health issues involving pain and like my wrists and my hands, and then also with my back, right? Because of my failed back surgery. And so, we've pretty much tested the limits of medication that that you can buy prescription by prescription. And I personally try to stay off of the opioids and everything like that, because they mess with you, and the way the laws are, the way the laws are now where I live, you basically have to get drugs tested to make sure that you aren't abusing your opioids. So I was like, I'm just not going to take any of them. But they they have legalized CBD for smaller doses for recreational use, and then prescription wise for pain and glaucoma and all sorts of other things. So I was reading up on it a little bit, and I'm like, hey, I'd like to try that. See, maybe it'll help with my wrists and my hands, and maybe a little bit with my back and whatnot. So I found the store, and I ran up to the store, and I talked to the gal behind the counter and told her what I was dealing with and what I was looking for and stuff like that. And and she handed me she offered me a couple things. She offered me like these gummy things that you could get, and she also offered me like this chocolate bar, right? And so I got I ended up getting the chocolate bar, and she said now since you've never had one of these before, only eat one. And I was like, okay, that's fine, and I said, they ring it up and and everything else. And so I took it home, and I opened it up, and I saw that they were in squares, so I popped the square in my mouth, ate it, and I was chugging along, typing on my computer and everything else like that. Half an hour goes by, I didn't feel any different. So I was like, okay, well, if I don't feel it, perhaps I just have a very high tolerance towards it. So I had a second one, and then another half hour went by, still didn't feel anything. And so me, I'm a habitual snacker when it comes to sitting in front of my computer and having food there. So I just ended up polishing off the rest of the chocolate bar. Well, then it finally started kicking in, and it kicked in after I started getting sleepy. So I dozed off, and after eating this entire bar that has CBD in it, but what I didn't realize is that it also had THC in it. And that's the other stuff that's within hemp and everything else that and I didn't realize that it was legalized for people to for companies to allow that to be in their products, because I all I knew was that stuff was in the ganja, but not I didn't think it would be in anything else. So I started having problems breathing, because I had essentially overdosed in on the two chemicals. And so I had to get EMS and have them come and get me and stuff like that. And I was in the ER for like 5 hours. And the worst thing of it was I got there. After I got there and I was in there for a while, I must have completely zonked out or something, because I don't remember anything. I don't remember the ambulance ride there. I don't remember anything that was said to me. All I remember was waking up and saying, "Where am I?" And so after explaining to them what happened, and then me like zonking out, apparently I told them what happened, and I don't know what. I don't remember anything I talked about with the doctors or the nurses or anything else. And they were telling me what I was saying and stuff like that, and I was like, oh man. So word of advice to anybody out there who may or may not use those products, be very careful. be extremely careful, because I literally thought I might have done something tremendously bad and not even be here. And fortunate for me, my neighbor was just coming home, and I had made it into my walkway where I was able to get him to help me and stuff like that. But I mean, I was hurting really bad. So just make sure that if you do or use any of that stuff, that you're careful with it. So, but that's where I've been for the last week now, is recovering from that stuff, and fortunately I'm in a better place now. But it was kind of scary there for a while. No joke. So anyways, that kind of ruined all my plans for all the stuff that I wanted to talk about between now and their financial releases. So I did have to kind of cut a lot of content out that I wanted to cover. I still do want to talk about CoverCore and Hololive later on this week. We will discuss Hollow Earth and some of the stuff that I have both found and observed with that, and we'll take a close look at that, as well as what the CoverCore board of directors have planned for this coming year. We'll talk about that on a later date. But other than that, guys, that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for coming in and listening to me as I discuss how things are looking for Anycolor right now. There are analysts who are actual people that work, financial analysts that have provided kind of a very shiny, hopeful future for the next year for the company. Who knows if that will happen or not. I do think that there is a possibility that they will at least turn it around if their financial report is positive tomorrow. If it's not positive, we will probably see a bigger decline in their stock price. And honestly, if they miss really big, there's a good possibility that they will finally fall below CoverCore in stock value. So let's hope that they don't, though, because again, at least up to their third quarter financial reports, despite the fact that they had a less than stellar quarter last quarter, their financial report is still pretty strong. It is strong. So yeah. I well, I messed with it once, and I think I'm just gonna not try it for a while again. I may try it again, but I may, now that I'm smarter and actually know, hey, just because you don't feel it doesn't mean that your body isn't reacting to it. It's not like drinking drinking alcohol where you start realizing, hey, I'm buzzed pretty good. Okay, I'm drunk. You know, I probably shouldn't drive. That kind of thing. You know, for me, it was just like I felt nothing, and then I felt nothing, and then I couldn't remember anything either. I was like, oh my gosh. What happened? Where am I? Why am I laying in a hospital bed with only my underwear and a pair of shorts on? What happened to my shirt and my shoes? Oh, I didn't come in with them? Oh, okay, that explains it. It was, yeah, not my best moment there. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here with me tonight. I do plan on also trying to stream some, you know, regular gaming content. I've been working on my account with Weathering Waves, and I did pre-register for that new game that their Hoyoverse is putting out. I think that's coming out next month. But that will probably be my final and only other free-to-play game that if I do end up liking it, because you know, besides Star Rail, between Star Rail and the other one, I have that takes up a lot of time already, you know, and I'm still haven't moved past where we were story wise on the game, you know, so I gotta do that too. There's a reason I don't eat sweets that much. Well, hey, yeah, that's smart. That's smart. Now, you know, I mean, for me, I learned my lesson, and that's all that I don't need to experiment anymore, you know. So all right, guys, Knight, thank you so much for dropping in. The Cool 2T, of course, it's always a pleasure having you in chat as well. CJC, thank you so much for dropping in, my friend. I know you woke up late, but still, thank you for stopping in. Umberto, thank you as always for being here, my friend. I appreciate you guys always coming in and chatting with me. And of course, all my lurkers and people who've come in late or left, thank you so much for dropping in as well. You guys are always welcome. You guys I never demand people that do interaction with me. I mean, most of the time, if I'm talking to myself, yeah, you are pretty much hearing my inner dialogue. So, you know, hey, you know, that's fine too. I don't mind. I would much rather be talking to people who are just listening than, you know, just talking without doing anything productive. So yeah, stay safe, guys, and thank you so much for always dropping in. Please check the community tab and also on X for the next stream. I have not published or put up a room on that yet, but I will put up a room with it as soon as I finish the thumbnail for it. So other than that, thank you so much, guys. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever the case may be for you. Until then, this is Marko Yamashita signing off. Peace.
I'm here to make it to the top. I'll take a shot, I'll overpower